The mountain of wedding gifts was a testament to the love and support surrounding us, a colorful avalanche of boxes and bows that filled a corner of our small apartment. My husband, Liam, was meticulously logging each one into a spreadsheet, his quiet joy a comforting hum beside my own whirlwind of excitement. We'd saved the family gifts for last, a tradition in my family, meant to be the grand finale of the gift opening ceremony. My parents had given us a generous check, tucked inside a card with a tear-jerking message. Liam's parents had gifted us a beautiful set of handcrafted furniture for the patio we didn't yet have, a promise of future sunny afternoons. Then there was Samantha's gift. My older sister, Samantha. To say our relationship was complex would be an understatement. We loved each other with the fierce, unspoken bond that only sisters can share, but it was a love tangled in years of rivalry, of borrowed clothes that were never returned, of secrets whispered and later used as ammunition. She had always been the practical one, the one who balanced her checkbook to the penny and bought sensible shoes. I was the dreamer, the one who bought a plane ticket to Paris on a whim and came back with a suitcase full of memories and a maxed-out credit card. Her gift was wrapped in plain brown paper, no ribbon, no bow, just my name scribbled in her familiar spiky handwriting. It was deceptively light. I tore it open, expecting maybe a gift certificate to a sensible home goods store or a set of matching Tupperware. But as the paper fell away, my breath caught in my throat. It was a toaster. Not a new, shiny, four-slice, multi-setting marvel of modern engineering. No. It was a vintage two-slice toaster, a faded almond color that screamed 1980s kitchen. There were crumbs in the slots. Actual fossilized crumbs from someone else's breakfast. A small, yellowed sticky note was attached to the side. Thought you could use this. It still works. Sam. Liam peered over my shoulder. Oh, a toaster. He, bless his heart, was trying to find the good in it. It's very retro? I stared at it, a hot flush of humiliation creeping up my neck. This wasn't just a bad gift, it was a message. It was Samantha, in her infinite, infuriating practicality, telling me that my marriage, my new life, was a second-hand affair, a slightly used appliance that might still work if I was lucky. Every unspoken competition, every passive-aggressive comment over the years, felt crystallized in this single, crumb-filled object. The laughter bubbled up in my throat, a strange, hysterical sound. It wasn't a sound of joy. It was the sound of a plan beginning to form, a deliciously petty, perfectly golden brown plan. Revenge, I decided, is a dish best served toasted. The toaster sat on our kitchen counter for a week, a squat, beige monument to my sister's thoughtlessness. Every morning I'd make my coffee and glare at it. Liam, ever the diplomat, had tried to gently suggest we could, perhaps, tuck it away in a cupboard. But I refused. I wanted it there, a constant, crumb-filled reminder of my mission. The plan was simmering, and like a good stew, it needed time to let the flavors of vengeance meld. Operation Golden Brown, as I dubbed it in my head, couldn't be rushed. This wasn't about a simple, angry confrontation. That was Sam's style, direct and brutally honest. Mine needed to be more subtle, a slow burn that would leave her wondering, just for a second, if she was going crazy. I needed to play the long game. The perfect opportunity presented itself in the form of Samantha's annual Spring Fling dinner party. It was her pride and joy, an event she planned for months. The guest list was carefully curated, the menu was always ambitious, and the unspoken rule was that you had to bring a thoughtful, hostess gift. For years, I had brought expensive bottles of wine or artisanal cheese platters. This year, I would bring the toaster. But I wouldn't just bring the toaster. That would be too obvious, too crude. It needed finesse. My revenge would be an art form. My first step was to clean it. I spent a full afternoon meticulously disassembling the appliance as much as I could. I used Q-tips and toothpicks to excavate the ancient crumbs, feeling like an archaeologist of breakfast past. I polished the faded almond plastic until it had a dull sheen. I even managed to fix the lever, which had a tendency to stick. I made it better. It was still an old, ugly toaster, but now it was a clean, functional, old, ugly toaster. Next came the packaging. I went to the most expensive stationery store in the city, the kind of place Samantha adored. I bought a large, glossy white box, sheets of thick, gold-flecked tissue paper, and a ridiculously oversized silk ribbon in a shade of deep burgundy. I was creating a Trojan horse of passive aggression. The day of the party arrived. Liam watched me, a look of amused concern on his face as I nestled the toaster into its tissue paper tomb. The box looked stunning, elegant, and impossibly chic, It looked like it could contain anything from a designer handbag to a crystal vase. "Are you sure about this, Clara?" he asked, adjusting his tie. "It feels pointed." "That's the point," I said, a grin spreading across my face. I carefully penned a small card, using the same flowery calligraphy I'd used for our wedding invitations. The note was simple, devastatingly sweet. "Sam, saw this and it made me think of you. Hope it brings you as much joy as your gift brought me. All my love, Clara." I tucked the note inside, sealed the box, and tied the magnificent bow. As I held the beautifully wrapped package, I felt a thrill of anticipation. The toaster was ready for its homecoming. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was watch my sister walk into it. Samantha's home was an extension of herself, immaculate, tastefully decorated in shades of gray and white, and with an underlying sense of rigid control. Every coaster was perfectly aligned, every cushion was plumped, and the air smelled faintly of lemon polish and ambition. It was the kind of house that made you nervous about breathing too loudly. As Liam and I stepped inside, Samantha glided towards us, a vision in a crisp linen dress, her smile as bright and hard as a diamond. "Clara, Liam, you made it," she said, her eyes immediately falling to the magnificently wrapped box in my hands. "My goodness, Clara, what is this? You really didn't have to." Her tone was a perfect blend of feigned modesty and genuine appreciation for the expensive wrapping. She took the box from me, her fingers tracing the silk ribbon. "It's just gorgeous. Only the best for my big sister," I replied, my voice dripping with a sweetness that made my own teeth ache. She placed the gift on a designated gift table, alongside other, less impressively wrapped offerings. For the next hour, we mingled. I sipped a glass of chilled Sauvignon Blanc, making small talk with Samantha's friends, who all seemed to have jobs with intimidating titles like Senior Vice President or Chief Financial Officer. All the while, my eyes kept drifting back to the Trojan toaster, sitting there in all its glorious, deceptive beauty. Finally, after the main course was cleared, Samantha clapped her hands together. "Time for presents," she announced with a theatrical flair that felt rehearsed. It was a tradition at her parties. She would open the hostess gifts in front of everyone, giving a running commentary of gratitude. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. She saved my gift for last, of course. "And this one," she said, picking it up with a reverence that was almost comical, "is from my wonderful sister Clara." She held it up for everyone to admire the packaging. There were murmurs of oohs and ahs. She untied the ribbon with a delicate slowness, savoring the moment. She lifted the lid off the box and parted the gold-flecked tissue paper. And then she froze. The room fell silent. For a split second, an expression of pure, unadulterated disbelief flashed across her face. It was quickly replaced by a tight, strained smile that didn't reach her eyes. She reached into the box and slowly, as if lifting a venomous snake, she pulled out the 1980s almond-colored toaster. An audible gasp came from a woman with a pearl necklace. Someone else coughed. Liam took a sudden, intense interest in the pattern on his shoes. "Oh," Samantha said, her voice a thin, brittle thing. "A toaster. It's the one you gave me," I chirped, my eyes wide with feigned innocence. I just loved it so much, the vintage charm, the history. And when I found this one, exactly like it, I just knew you had to have one too. We can be toaster twins. Her smile tightened. I could almost hear her teeth grinding. "How thoughtful, Clara." "Oh, and you have to read the card," I urged, pointing to the small, elegant note I'd tucked inside. Her movements were stiff as she picked up the card. The other guests were now staring, utterly captivated by this bizarre social train wreck. As she read my words, "Hope it brings you as much joy as your gift brought me," I saw a flicker of pure rage in her eyes. It was there for only a second, a wildfire that she quickly extinguished with a heroic amount of self-control. She looked up, her face a mask of polite gratitude. "Thank you, Clara," she said, the words perfectly enunciated and dripping with unspoken fury. "It's perfect. I'll be sure to use it." She placed the toaster on the table with the same care one might use for a live explosive. The party continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. A layer of exquisite, unspoken tension now coated the room. I had won the battle. As I watched Samantha glide around, topping up wine glasses and laughing just a little too loudly, I knew, with absolute certainty, that the war had just begun. The week following the spring fling was marked by a profound and unnerving silence from Samantha. There were no angry phone calls, no scathing text messages, Not even a passive-aggressive comment on any of my social media posts. It was a strategic silence, the kind that precedes a storm. Liam, bless his optimistic heart, thought the matter was over. Maybe she realized it was a funny prank, he suggested one evening. I just shook my head. You don't know my sister. She's not laughing. She's reloading. I knew Samantha. Her pride was a fortress, and I had just launched a flaming projectile right into her courtyard. She wouldn't retaliate with a direct assault. Her revenge would be patient, calculated, and designed to hit me where I was most vulnerable. My own sense of cleverness. She was going to use my own game against me. The counterattack came on a Tuesday. It was raining, a miserable gray afternoon, and I was trying to work from home, huddled over my laptop at the dining table. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I peered through the peephole to see Samantha standing on our doorstep, holding a large, cheerful-looking gift bag from a popular home decor store. She was smiling, a serene, placid smile that sent a shiver down my spine. I opened the door. Sam! What a surprise! What are you doing here? Clara, hi, she chirped, stepping inside and shaking her umbrella dramatically. Sorry to just drop in, but I was driving by and I had something for you. A little housewarming gift. You already gave us a wedding gift, I said, eyeing the bag suspiciously. I know, silly, this isn't for the wedding, it's for the apartment. A little something to help you settle in. She thrust the bag into my hands. It was heavier than I expected. I played along, forcing a smile. Sam, you shouldn't have. Oh, it was nothing. Open it. I reached into the bag, my fingers brushing against crinkly tissue paper. Beneath it, I felt a familiar, hard plastic shell. My heart sank. Slowly, I pulled it out. It was the toaster. The very same faded almond, 1980s toaster. It was unmistakable. But this time, it was different. Taped to the front was a large, glittery bow, and tied to the handle with a piece of rustic twine was a small laminated card. On the card, in Samantha's perfect, bubbly handwriting, were the words, "Apartment Toaster." I stared at it, speechless. Samantha's smile widened. I was thinking, she began, her voice a masterclass in faux sincerity. Since Liam's office is in the spare room and you're always working from the dining table, you need a designated apartment toaster for this side of the house. It's so inefficient to have to walk all the way to the kitchen toaster when you need a snack. This way, you have one right where you need it. It's all about creating efficient work zones. I thought it was such a clever solution. It was brilliant. Utterly, diabolically brilliant. She had taken my prank, my carefully constructed piece of social theater, and reframed it as a practical, thoughtful gesture. She had not only returned the toaster, but had given it a purpose within my own home, a purpose so ridiculously specific that to refuse it would make me look ungrateful and churlish. She had boxed me in with my own brand of passive aggression. Wow, Sam, I managed, my voice tight. That's so incredibly thoughtful of you. I never would have thought of that. Right? She beamed, her eyes sparkling with triumphant malice. Well, I can't stay. Just wanted to drop that off. Let me know how your new work zone works out. And with that, she turned and glided out the door, leaving me standing in my hallway, holding the twice-gifted toaster. The glittery bow seemed to mock me. The laminated apartment toaster tag was a tiny, infuriating trophy of her victory. I looked at the toaster, then at the door that had just closed behind her. The silence was broken by my own low chuckle. The game was on. The toaster was back in my court, and it was my move. For 2 days, the apartment toaster sat on my dining table, a silent, glittering monument to Samantha's cunning. I was stumped. She had played my own game against me and won the round decisively. Returning it again would be predictable. Ignoring it would be a surrender. I needed a new angle, a move that would not just return the volley but change the entire game. The idea came to me, as most of my ideas do, in a flash of late-night inspiration, fueled by a glass of wine and my simmering indignation. Samantha had given the toaster an identity. I was going to give it a life. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. I created a new account. The profile picture was a lovingly shot portrait mode photo of the toaster, looking as majestic as a faded almond appliance possibly could. The username? The traveling toaster. And the bio? Just a vintage toaster. Living my best life thanks to the world's most thoughtful gift giver. Currently residing in a highly efficient work zone. My first post was a masterpiece of saccharine subversion. It was a flat lay photo, the kind Samantha loved to post. The toaster was positioned artfully next to my laptop, a steaming mug of coffee, and a single perfect croissant. The caption was crafted with meticulous care. Rise and shine, ready for another productive day in my designated work zone, feeling so grateful for my existence. A big thank you to my Auntie Sam for seeing my potential. Chapter Toaster Life. Work from home. Chapter Efficiency. Best auntie ever. Blessed. I tagged Samantha. Liam watched me, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Oh, you are evil," he said, shaking his head in admiration. "She started it," I said, hitting share. I posted again that evening, a picture of the toaster on the arm of the sofa, with a tiny throw blanket draped over it. The caption, "Time to relax after a long day of toasting potential. Nothing like getting cozy for a movie night. Cozy vibes. Toaster at rest. Chalk self-care." The next day, I posted a photo of the toaster sitting on the passenger seat of my car, buckled in. Adventure is out there. Going on a little trip? Can you guess where? On the road again. Traveling toaster. Our safety first. I didn't have many followers on the account, just a few of my most trusted, gossip-loving friends whom I'd tipped off. But I knew Samantha was watching. I could feel her eyes on my digital creation from across the city. The confirmation came on the third day. She didn't comment. She didn't like a single post. But the follower count on the traveling toaster ticked up by one. The new follower, Samantha G. She was watching my every move. I pictured her scrolling through the photos, her jaw tightening with each cloyingly cheerful caption. I had taken her thoughtful gift and turned it into a public spectacle of my own making. I had seized control of the narrative. The toaster was no longer just a toaster. It was a character in our absurd little drama, my co-conspirator. The silence from her end was deafening. But now it wasn't the silence of her plotting her next move. It was the silence of someone who had been momentarily stunned, forced to observe a situation that had spiraled far beyond a simple exchange of unwanted gifts. I had put the toaster on a stage, under a spotlight, and handed it a script. The next scene was hers to play, but I was now the director. The traveling toaster account became my pet project. I was having more fun than I cared to admit. The toaster came with me everywhere. It had its picture taken at the farmer's market, perched on a pile of artisanal bread. It read a book in a deck chair on our small balcony. It even had a spa day, pictured with cucumber slices over its slots. With every post, I felt a small, triumphant thrill. I was weaving a narrative of such absurd, relentless positivity that it had to be driving Samantha insane. Her silence was the key. She was watching. I knew it. The single silent follow was proof. She was biding her time, waiting for the right moment to strike. I just never imagined it would be so literal. On Saturday afternoon, I decided the toaster needed some culture. I took it to a local art gallery. I found a quiet corner with a stark, minimalist sculpture and positioned the toaster on a bench in front of it, as if it were contemplating the piece. I snapped a picture, crafting the perfect caption, "Art inspires art," reflecting on the transient nature of existence and the permanent beauty of brushed steel. Deep thoughts, Chacha art lover, Chacha toaster contemplates. I posted it and put my phone away, a self-satisfied smile on my face. A few minutes later, as I was genuinely trying to appreciate a rather chaotic abstract painting, a familiar voice cut through the quiet gallery air. "Clara, fancy seeing you here." I turned. It was Samantha. She looked impeccable, of course, in a tailored blazer and heels that clicked softly on the polished concrete floor. Her eyes weren't on me, though. They were locked on the toaster, still sitting on the bench. "Sam," I said, my smile feeling suddenly fragile. "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just soaking up some culture," she said, gliding over to the bench. She looked down at the toaster with an expression of intense fondness, the way one might look at a beloved puppy. "And look who it is! The little star himself." She reached down and patted the top of the toaster. "I have been loving his adventures, Clara. It's the most clever idea you've ever had. Truly. I'm glad you're enjoying it," I said, my guard fully up. "Enjoying it? I'm obsessed," she gushed. "In fact, I saw your post and I had an idea. I'm on my way to the botanical gardens. They have a new orchid exhibit. Can you imagine the photos? The juxtaposition of industrial design and natural beauty? He has to come with me." Before I could process what was happening, she scooped the toaster up off the bench. She cradled it in her arms as if it were a baby. "Wait, Sam." I was about to— "Don't be silly, Clara," she interrupted smoothly, already starting to walk away. You've done so much. Let me contribute. It's the least I can do, as his proud auntie. You just stay here and enjoy the art. I'll take him on his next adventure and I'll drop him back at your place later tonight. We'll have a blast. She turned, gave me a dazzling, triumphant smile, and walked out of the gallery, leaving me standing speechless in front of a sculpture made of twisted scrap metal. She had kidnapped my toaster. She had taken my co-conspirator, my main character, my beautifully petty weapon of revenge, and walked out the door with it. The game had just escalated from a digital war to a physical one. I stood there in the art gallery for a full 5 minutes, frozen. Tourists and art students drifted past me, occasionally glancing at the scrap metal sculpture I was pretending to admire. My mind was a frantic blur of indignation and disbelief. She had just walked out with my toaster, my prop, my perfectly calibrated instrument of psychological warfare. She had kidnapped it. I rushed back to my apartment, my heart pounding with a mixture of rage and a strange, grudging respect. Liam was on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. She took it, I said, breathless, as I burst through the door. Liam looked up, his eyebrows raised. Took what? The toaster. Samantha. She showed up at the art gallery and just took it. She said she was taking it to the botanical gardens for a photo shoot. Liam stared at me for a beat, and then he let out a bark of laughter. No, she did not. She did. She just picked it up and walked out. She kidnapped the toaster, he said, the grin spreading across his face. He shook his head slowly. That woman is a legend. It's not funny, Liam. She's hijacking my hijacking. She's stealing my narrative. Your narrative? He choked out between laughs. It's a toaster, Clara. It's the principle, I fumed, pulling out my phone. I paced the living room, refreshing Samantha's Instagram feed obsessively. For an hour, there was nothing. The silence was agonizing. I was the director who had lost her leading man. And then, it started. The first post appeared on Samantha's own, very popular Instagram account. It was a stunning, professional-quality photo. The toaster was sitting amidst a riot of exotic orchids, the soft, filtered light of the conservatory making its almond-colored plastic gleam. The caption was a masterpiece of passive aggression. Rescued this little guy from a stuffy old gallery and took him for some fresh air. He was practically begging for some natural beauty. It's so important to broaden one's horizons, don't you think? Toaster on tour, botanical beauty, upgrade, living his best life. She tagged the traveling toaster. Oh, she is diabolical, I whispered, showing the phone to Liam. His laughter had subsided into a low chuckle of awe. She's not just playing the game, Clara. She's changing the rules. Another post followed 20 minutes later. The toaster posed beside a towering cactus, feeling sharp, soaking up all the good vibes. It's amazing what a change of scenery can do for the soul. She didn't have to say it. The implication was clear. My scenery was soul-crushing. Her scenery was life-affirming. She was rescuing the toaster from my clutches. The final post was the killer. A selfie. Samantha, looking radiant, was holding the toaster up to her cheek, nuzzling it. Had the best day with my favorite little appliance. It's clear he just thrives on adventure and affection. I'm so glad I could give him a proper day out. He's going home now, but we'll always have our memories. Auntie Sam's adventure, Jatcher making memories, quality time. Late that evening, the doorbell rang. It was Samantha, as promised. She stood there, holding the toaster, which now looked suspiciously clean, almost polished. Here he is, she said, her voice dripping with sweetness as she handed it to me. Safe and sound. He was a perfect gentleman all day. As I took it from her, I noticed something new. Tied around the toaster's lever was a small, elegant, dark green ribbon. Attached to the ribbon was a tiny, engraved silver tag. I squinted to read the elegant script. It said, "Property of Samantha G. on loan to Clara." She gave me a final, dazzling smile. "Just so he doesn't get lost on his travels again," she said. "Good night, Clara." She turned and walked away, leaving me holding the branded, tagged, utterly conquered toaster. The war was no longer about a silly appliance. It was about my sanity. And as I stood there in my doorway, staring at the smug little silver tag, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This war was about to end. I was going to finish it. My sister Samantha's wedding gift was a vintage toaster, complete with crumbs from the 80s. A sticky note read, "It still works." While my husband Liam tried to call it retro, I knew it was a message. In our lifelong rivalry, this was a declaration of war. My revenge would be a dish best served toasted. Sam's annual dinner party was the perfect opportunity. I cleaned the old toaster meticulously, then packaged it in the most expensive, elegant gift box I could find, complete with a silk ribbon and a devastatingly sweet note. Saw this, and it made me think of you. At her party, in front of all her guests, she unwrapped my Trojan horse. The forced smile on her face as she held up the ugly appliance was my first victory. How thoughtful, Clara, she ground out through clenched teeth. A week later, Sam appeared at my door. She returned the toaster, this time in a cheerful gift bag with a huge bow. I realized you need an apartment toaster for your work zone, she chirped, leaving me speechless. She had brilliantly reframed my prank as a practical gesture. That night, I created an Instagram account, The Traveling Toaster. The bio read, "Just a vintage toaster, living my best life." The first post was a photo of the toaster beside my laptop, feeling so grateful for my existence. Thank you, Auntie Sam. Blessed. I posted photos of the toaster on adventures, buckled into my car, visiting a farmer's market, contemplating art at a gallery. The account had only one important follower, Samantha G. While I was at the art gallery, Samantha appeared. I've been loving his adventures, she gushed. I'm taking him to the botanical gardens for a real photo shoot. Before I could react, she snatched the toaster from its bench and walked out. She had kidnapped my main character. Later that evening, her own Instagram was filled with stunning pictures of the toaster among orchids and cacti. Rescued this little guy, one caption read. She returned it that night, but with a new addition. A small engraved silver tag tied to the lever. It read, "Property of Samantha G. on loan to Clara." She hadn't just won the battle. She had literally branded her victory onto my weapon. For 2 months, I plotted. The final act was our parents' 40th anniversary party, hosted by Samantha. I volunteered to bring appetizers. I arrived with a large, covered silver platter and placed it on the dining table. In the center, nestled amongst dozens of perfectly browned crostini, was the toaster, plugged in and ready to go. A small card in front of it read, "Revenge Toast." When my father asked me to say a few words, I stood up. "I'd like to make a toast," I began, my eyes locked on Samantha. "To the gifts we give each other. Some gifts tell an epic story." I recounted the entire saga to our family, the regifting, the Instagram account, the kidnapping, the engraved tag. The room filled with laughter. My sister is a genius, I concluded, and this whole ridiculous toaster war has been the most fun I've had in years. So I hope everyone enjoys the appetizers, which were all made fresh here tonight in the toaster that started it all. The room roared with applause. Even Samantha, after a moment of shock, broke into a genuine, cathartic laugh. I had won by turning our private war into a public celebration of our insane sisterhood. Later, as we cleaned up, she unplugged the toaster. "I think," she said, smiling, "it's time for this to be retired." The toaster now lives in our parents' attic, a trophy we had won together.